taken down for copyright infringement.
I really, really hope that we don't. Let's not. I gotta not sing famous songs, I guess. Welcome, everybody. We are live, cross-streaming on multi-platforms. I'm Mike McGettigan, director of the Planet Ant Training Center. Directly to my immediate right is Andy Reid, associate director of the Planet Ant Training Center. And this week's special guest, Bob Hahn. I usually wait for applause at that point, but we don't get applause online. It just doesn't happen. I mean, yeah, we can do this, but it just feels wrong.
It's just wrong. It's wrong.
But anyways, we're here today again to talk about improv, talk about improv online, talk about what we can do with it, talk about how we're coping, talk about how we're adjusting or changing what we're doing to be able to make it work online. So you can chime in the chat. Oh, I forgot to send the chat link to my friends on the show. I'm going to send you guys the link so that we can all read the chat. There you go. What's that rumbling? Oh, is that you typing, Andy?
I am.
Go ahead and share it. Share the stream if you can. Just an update, Andy. I did not buy a rice cooker yet, but it does look like my unemployment is about to deposit in my account because I got a notification about that. So I think I'm going to get a microcomputer rice cooker. So I dropped that exciting bomb on you guys right out of the gate.
If you guys were not here,
I don't know what to say.
You missed Mike accidentally showing us all the tabs on his computer, and instead of finding anything weird or gross, we just found out that he was shopping for a rice cooker.
Yep. Nothing weird or gross. I would hide all of that weird and gross stuff pretty well.
Yeah.
And if you need to hire somebody to help you hide weird and gross stuff on your computer, just let me know. I'm happy to help. Honestly, I did do computer support to senior citizens for many years, and it was super interesting because I used to teach these massive classes with a bunch of people that were like somewhere from like anywhere. I mean, I've taught people that were like in their 90s. I taught one of my students was even up into the like 100. Hello, unpronounceable username.
I think it's Phaser Prick Cricky.
But anyways, though, so I used to teach senior citizens all the time, and I used to get hired to go out to their houses and help them out. And it was always just super simple stuff that they needed help with. It wasn't anything like really complicated. It was all just very simple stuff. And a lot of times I just got the feeling that they just didn't want to deal with the computer at all or learn about it or anything. But I did wind up seeing lots of what kind of porn these old people were into. It would be like all over the computers. And I also offered no judgment about it. I wouldn't say anything about it. I wouldn't mention it. But there was some pretty gross stuff that was like, wow, you're into Brazilian fart porn, huh? Never would have thought that. Or maybe it was just a phase that guy was going through. I don't know. I've gotten...
at some point in our lives.
So that's a phrase I have heard repeated often when referencing disgusting porn.
Yeah.
Why?
You about to stick up for it?
Why would people bring up fart porn as a gross thing? Why is it always Brazilian? I think
that there's an actual like subculture of Brazilian fart porn, I think. Like, well, I mean, we've all laughed and enjoyed ourselves talking about the cake fart videos.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All of that stuff.
That, as far as I can tell, she was speaking English, so I don't believe that cake farts is a Brazilian fart porn video.
Yeah, I don't think cake farts is necessarily.
Hey, so Phaser Pricky Cricky, you're from Italy? How did you stumble across our page about improv?
Oh, awesome.
We are What Do You Train Ants to Do? Hello, Carl. Here at the Planet Ant Theater in Hamtramck, Michigan, just outside of lovely Detroit. Mm-hmm. Our improv and comedy theater currently shut down, obviously, because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So, while we are unable to right now offer our normal improv and sketch classes, we are doing this weekly meetup for our students and other fans of improv comedy to come chat about improv, ask us some questions about our specific theater or improv theory, anything like that. We've been having some fun chats about things people are curious about, transitioning the form of improv comedy into this new online medium, and also just dicking around, trying some exercises and having some fun.
Mm-hmm. Bob, how did you first find out about the Planet Ant?
Well, glad you asked that. So my wife and I actually started together. It was probably about 4 years ago, and we came down and took a free, clinic with Michael Hovich, and despite that, we still went through with it. What?
Yeah.
Say something funny. But anyway, so then we started together and went through all the classes. In fact, Will Curry we started together with Will. Okay. And went all the way through, and so that's and Cameron, she went all the way through too, and but she's not active right now in improvising. But yeah, so that's how we got started, and it's been a lot of fun. Met a lot of great people, and have really gotten to do a lot of things I never thought we would ever do. So a ton of fun.
How long ago was that you took that drop-in class?
Like I said, it's probably about 4 years ago, maybe 3.5 years ago. And then, like I said, I went through, ended up, so Will and I got in advance, and we picked up Dan Tice, Vince Fantine, and Graham Leslie, and we graduated together. So then we went on and formed Low Estrogen after that, which, by the way, our Facebook page gets more hits than anything, but I don't think they're looking for our improv troupe.
Yeah, probably not. That's great. Yeah.
Hey, Victor's in the chat, and he says our video is mislabeled. I don't know how that would happen. I just posted it and updated the... it doesn't look like it's mislabeled on here, Victor. Where are you watching it, Victor? That it still says "Hungry as a Horse" on YouTube, apparently. Well, it updated on all the other platforms. That's odd. I guess I'll fix it on YouTube.
Phaser Prick Cricky, I am so sorry to hear about your aunt. That is terrible news. I'm sorry. Our hearts go out to you, and hopefully we can help you have some fun and take your mind off it for a little while, talking about some improv. So, yeah, if anybody has any improv questions or anything they're curious about, anything they want to hear from us, or any discussion you want us to have, just let us know in the comments. Well, we can start this. Bob, what are some things improv-wise that you, before this shutdown happened, were kind of like focusing on? What are some areas that you've been trying to get better at as a performer?
Well, we one of our troops is crab fight, and one of the things we've been working on lately is bringing inanimate objects to life. So, basically, the Coke can is pissed because his little brother Pepsi got married and had little Mountain Dew kids, and all he's doing is getting action from the old Diet Coke lady down the street, So those are the things we've been working on, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's part of your guys' form, right? Is that you start scenes from non-human characters?
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's always fun to see, like I said, an inanimate object have personal feelings, and what their viewpoint of the world is.
Definitely. So, I think a lot of times with improv, you know how in school at a certain point you were told by your teacher for the first time ever, you have an essay assignment and there are no parameters. You can write about whatever you want.
Yep.
And then you get excited, but then you go to read it, you go to do it, and you just freeze. You have no idea what to write about. I think
too broad. Yeah.
I think because of that in improv, because the possibilities are endless, a lot of times that we don't even consider creative avenues. It's much easier to get on the same page if everyone is a present day human with, easily identifiable relationships and things like that. So it's always fun. I like to experiment with trying to find those things organically through like choices that you don't force yourself to explain right away, if that makes sense. Like, yeah. If somebody makes a big, bold choice on stage, instead of jumping on that thought to like immediately identify that thing and force it into the like normal box we have on stage, that you just kind of like let that weird thing live and breathe for a little while until you naturally find a reason for its existence.
Mm-hmm. I think it is much more fun to do that than to force that,
Yeah.
But yeah, Bob, I like that form also because I helped you guys work on it.
You did.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the inanimate objects coming to life, and I think it makes us concentrate on the relationships a little bit more, because I mean, a ketchup bottle and a shaker of salt don't have any kind of like feelings or natural relationships that we're gonna have to assume as an audience member. We're just going to have to create that on stage for people.
Right.
I've always thought of salt shaker's emotional range in terms of that Jimmy Buffett song.
Which song?
That salt shaker's been lost for so long.
Jimmy Buffett.
And maybe he's emotionally lost. You don't know.
Yeah. So, looking for my lost sacred shawl. Vlad Sullivan asks us, has this period away from the theater been beneficial for the whole creative process?
I mean, I think that we'll find out in however many months before we're allowed to perform again, till it's safe to have a crowded theater again. But I definitely think that the creative process, as far as I'm concerned, the creative process, part of it is downtime. And to me, this is kind of downtime research phase. This is a letting yourself kind of, be kind of phase, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I'm not working hard on creating anything right now, but I am keeping up with all the things that I'm still doing.
See, I see what you're saying, but I also have to disagree, Mike. You're doing a ton of stuff. I mean, maybe not show, but look at the network of streaming shows we've developed in a month, which did not exist before. We're funneling creative energy into figuring out stuff like this. And maybe it doesn't feel creative, but it is. We're developing a whole new type of show for our community. So in that way, it has forced us to think outside the box and do things we never have before. In terms of writing or like developing shows that I want to see in a live setting eventually, when this started, I put some pressure on myself to write every day or work on this thing or write some sketches or things like that. And that just caused some stress. So I'm not beating myself up over writing stuff. I'm letting some things come to me if it happens, but I'm not sitting here thinking like I need to come out of quarantine with a show and a book ready to go.
Right. I mean, that's kind of what I was I mean, I think we both agree. I mean, there's a big part of this whole thing that is administrative, like the whole thing with getting like the live stream stuff going and helping people and encouraging people and stuff like that. Yeah, it's been a lot, but at the same time, like my personal thing, just like you're saying, like, I mean, I have a ton of unfinished scripts. I have a bunch of ideas rambling around. I have so many things that I could be working on, but I was kind of beating myself up at first. But now I'm just like, surviving is thriving in this environment because of how weird it is and how hard Detroit has been hit by this whole COVID-19 thing,
Yeah. Our entire life is completely different. And I'm not trying to set goals or have writing stuff done, but if it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, all that stuff I can save for the normal world.
The normal world. Well, the normal world is probably not going to be the same world when we come back to it, I would imagine. So,
yeah, I think there's going to be a whole different, process as far as material that you're going to use when we come back, because it's just you can look at Saturday Night Live right now and what they're trying to do, and it's a whole different program when you come back.
Really is.
And
we talked about how improv works, and like in the last couple shows, we talked about how we, use improv in our creation on stage and stuff like that, and late night improv sets that we do, or our Monday night shows that are been running for 25 years or whatever, and all these different improv shows that we have been doing at the theater. I mean, it really relies on so many things that are not present in the video world. There is it's something so different to experience live stage comedy. It's so different than watching video stuff. And we kind of talked last week about what some of those things are. But I'm just curious to get maybe your thoughts, Bob, and maybe any other thoughts you have, Andy, and audience as well, if you have any other ideas about the transition from improv on stage to the improv in front of a camera, being separated by miles and using like Skype to communicate. Right. What kinds of things can we do with that?
Well, I right off the bat, I think you lose all the nonverbal. I mean, you see the body language, you see, the smirk of the face. You see, there's so many things that you miss in video. In a Zoom conference or something like that. You just, you can. Like I said, if someone is slanting their foot a certain way, they're tapping their toe or something like that because they're frustrated. You don't see it.
Body language is completely out the window. Yeah,
it's out the window, and I think that's half a comedy.
It's a huge part of it for sure. It's just the characterizations that people have, how they stand, how they act. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's from an audience perspective too. I mean, like from our perspective as performers, I cannot nearly as well hop onto people's ideas or like you can't build riffs or games and scenes with any sort of consistency in this format, just because you lose the body language, the energy, that just you can't explore physical space, you can't explore like tension and release. All that stuff is gone.
Yeah.
So from a performer aspect too, it's just completely different like inputs that you're trying to react from.
It's true. Coming into improv back when I did in the late 90s, I, like most people that came into improv, were primarily exposed to improv and exposed to performance in general through television. I mean, that's where we got all of our exposure to what kinds of performances and things that we liked. I mean, a lot of my comedic stars were folks that were on SNL or other shows throughout my experience. And getting into improv was a big thing about divorcing my brain from what I thought worked when I would watch television, as opposed to what I could tell worked when you get on stage. Mm-hmm. And stage does certain things far better than film or video. But at the same time, stage also doesn't do some things that are really well done by film and video. We talked about how body language is completely out the window, but in that same regard, facial expressions can be picked up by video far better than being on stage in in a 200-seat theater or whatever. When you're way in the back, you don't get that that level of intimacy. But on stage, you get a much higher level of intimacy with the emotional response. Like, you get to feel what's happening up there on the stage. Whereas when you're watching something on a video screen, it's far easier to just completely disregard it. I mean, you can see somebody crying on TV and just walk past it and go grab a cup of coffee. Where if you're in the same room with somebody crying, there's no way you're going to be treating it that casually.
Right.
I mean, there's also with TV and movie film, there's also the creative license of angles and being able to manipulate how this is just a straight shot right down the barrel of everybody's face. Like, it's, you don't have the freedom to find ways to show body language and tension and all that stuff like you do in a movie. So
True.
I think you feed off the energy of the audience too, right? And
Absolutely.
if you're getting good feedback from the audience, then you continue doing what you're going to do. And if you're not getting any feedback from them, then you normally end up switching, and going on to something else. So, you're missing that whole vibe, that whole excitement and electricity.
You really are. Absolutely. There is that feeling that's incredibly special when you're in a giant room full of people and something is happening on stage that feels like it's never happened before. And this is completely brand new to you and the audience, and everybody's working in this synergistic kind of like mode where everything is just feeling like it's brand new and completely exciting, and you don't know what's going to happen next, and you're not even thinking, because your brain is not engaged in that thinking mode. You're just observing and enjoying what's happening. I mean, that is just the best, that feeling, being in the theater with a bunch of people and experiencing that either as a performer or as an audience member.
We got another question from our original guest on this feed, Mahmood. He asks, are there any good improv books that are helpful? Or improv books that are not that.
What do you want to know? All the non-helpful books?
I will say, not helpful ones. The Bible.
The Bible, worst improv instruction manual ever.
The phone book, terrible.
Awful.
I will say, for the phone book, gives you a ton of good ideas for character names. Other than that, terrible.
Most Stephen King don't go over well either. So.
What did you say, Bob?
Most Stephen King books don't go over well either.
No,
so.
I have not gotten much improv help out of Stephen King at all.
No, I've tried to set up improv scenes that I learned about from Stephen King books. Don't, because they're disgusting.
No.
Nobody,
especially when you're raising dead animals from the grave. I mean, it's not a good scene starter.
Robert Mitchum, also bad.
Yeah,
You'd think that would be good for improv, but Robert Mitchum, not great.
There are a million good ones, though, Mahmood. A couple of my favorites. Mick Napier from the Annoyance Theater has 2 books. The first one is called just Improvise. And I've always thought highly of his philosophy on stage. That's a good one. There is the UCB Handbook, which is the closest version to an improv textbook that you would get for like a program. It's set up like a college textbook, meant to, and their goal with it was meant to, if you weren't in a city with improv, you and your buddies could get this book and learn from it and be a troupe by the end. That is. I'm not the biggest proponent of the UCB style. They have some views on how important game is in relation to relationship and character building that I don't necessarily agree with. But there's a ton of good information in there. TJ and Dave have a book called Improvising at the Speed of Light.
That's
and that is
life. That's Improv at the Speed of Life, not life.
Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, that's probably my favorite one that I've read in recent memory. I really love the stuff they brought up in that book.
Yeah, it's great. And it's like kind of half biography, half philosophy, which is interesting. There's a book called Improv Nation that's just about the history of it. If you're interested in learning more about that.
Something Wonderful Right Away is another good history lesson book that kind of tells you the history of the Compass Players and the Second City and all that stuff.
Will Hines has a good one. How to Be the World's Greatest Improviser.
Oh, I've heard of that. I have not read that though. Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, he's got Will Hines is a guy from L.A. He's incredible. I'm sure you've seen him on shows. He's like a character actor, but he has two books. That one, the one Bob mentioned, and one that's just snippets of his improv frequently asked questions blog called Improv Nonsense. Both of those are good. Also, just look up his blog. He's got a ton of good answered questions on there. Second City has a book called Yes and that's centered around their philosophy. There's a ton of them.
I mean, you could pretty much look up like Amazon rated. Hey, what are some good improv books? And just find a list. I'm sure that there's tons of lists that people have created there. But Improv at the Speed of Life, I think, is probably my favorite one that I've read in a couple of years. It has a philosophy that matches my own philosophies as nearly as it can. Yeah, I'm with you, Andy, on the UCB criticism as well. I mean, I don't feel like the game being that game-centric is good for improv. I think it just takes you out of the scene as an actor. I mean, the trick with improv is that you have to be an actor and a storyteller at the same time. We're writing and performing at the same time. So
I think that so one of my influential teachers, James Quesada, breaks improv down into 3 categories: head, heart, X factor. We at the Ant are a heart front theater. So our goal in improv is to get you to develop strong characters with strong relationships with everybody on stage, and then you discover how these people care about each other, and the story that's being told is the evolution of their relationship through the actions on stage. That's where we mind comedy. And that's where I think the majority of really great improv comes from. But I also think that a knocked out of the park, like home run set also has a dash of these other styles of play in there to mix up energy, to mix up style, to keep the audience guessing and on their toes. So game, I think, has an important place in improv. I think that we as a community in Detroit, because we don't focus on it a ton, need to get better at it, need to get better at playing game and identifying potential games when they're on the table so that we can grasp them and run with them. The problem I have with UCB is they only want to play the game.
Right.
Their style of improv is set up the world, identify the game, communicate with your partner that we are now running a game, and then run the game as fast as you can until a logical conclusion, sweep, and start the next one. That's what they want to do. Even to the point where in the UCB handbook, they say at one point, you should not put on any character attributes like a voice or a physicality unless they are in direct service to the game you're playing. And that's where they really lose me, because it's like the opportunities you're just leaving on the ground by just playing yourself in every scene is stupid.
I know it is. Agreed.
And then the third one is X Factor, which is just making really bold, creative choices and developing a world around them. So I think that it's important for us to be strong in all of them, including game. I just to make that your sole focus in improv is my problem with UCB.
Agreed. The Gay Agenda says, excuse us one moment, please. Quick question. To whom do we complain? Should we have any? Hey, we'll take your complaints live on the air right now, Gay Agenda. Whatever you need, guys. I don't know which one of the two Gay Agenda folks it is on there sending that message. But I know Anthony's out in New York now as a nurse. So I know he's working his ass off in New York. But Sam's in town still. Huh?
The Gay Agenda also asks another quick question. Are you saying game or came? Game.
Game. G-A-M-E. We can discuss that the other version of that on our late night training center show.
Probably, honestly, every great improv scene also has at least one character coming. So
a dash of cum in every good scene.
Game of the scene.
Can't have a scene without a dick joke. So
we don't have any complaints. They love it. Thank you, Gay. Let us know if you have any questions about improv. What about you, Bob? Is there anything that you have been, as we're all stuck at home, is there any improv thoughts or things that have popped into your head? You're like, you know what, that's something I want to talk with people about.
Well, I was watching Middleditch and Schwartz the other night on Netflix, their show, and really realizing what a shitty improviser I am after you see those guys. But I think that what all this isolation is doing to people is, like you're saying, is that you're actually starting to use your right brain a lot more because you're having to be creative. Whether it's making stuff for the kids to do, whether it's coming up with things to keep yourself entertained. You look back when you were a little kid, before video games, at least when I was a kid, before video games, before all that, you would go out on the side lawn with 12 of your best friends, and you would make a game up.
Oh yeah.
You'd make rules. Totally. You'd make, hey, if you go left and 3 steps that way, you're in hot lava, you're out. And so you're always creating all the time, and I think that boredom drives people to do that. And I think that's what I'm getting out of this, is that boredom's really driving a lot of creativity out there. So
yeah.
It's a note that I've given it as an improv teacher a lot, is that creativity comes from limits. So if you set limits for yourself,
exactly,
it bores you. It forces you to make creative choices and stuff that you wouldn't normally. I love that note, Andy. That's something that I always give to people too. In class, in writing class or in improv class, it's the same thing. And there's a video from Every Frame a Painting, if anybody's watched that before. They used to do some videos that broke down some basic concepts in the creative process. And one of those was about Chuck Jones, and that was something that they ascribed to Chuck Jones, the animator for Looney Tunes, as having discipline. And he would set disciplines for himself. He would set things for himself, like, this character has no mouth, so how do I make a scene about this character with no mouth? Or this entire animation short, the only thing that's going to be the only dialogue in the entire thing is the song, the "Hello my baby, hello my darling, hello my ragtime," and like that was an entire cartoon. A lot of those cartoons are kind of the basis for where we are in sketch comedy nowadays. It's kind of was the very first sketch comedy, those 2 to 3 minute Looney Tunes cartoons, and Chuck Jones did hundreds of them and is responsible for a lot of comedy out there in the world that we were exposed to as kids. Victor asks, would you describe Too Much Light as Too Much Light Makes the Baby Go Blind as UCB method?
No.
So that's kind of like avant-garde theater. The thing you have to understand, Vic, about UCB is what we mean when we say the game of the scene in improv. And it's a kind of a slippery definition. It's hard. It's a difficult thing to wrap your head around when you first start improv. But basically, at its purest sense, the game of the scene is the pattern of repetition of what's funny about the specific scene. And when students have a question about game, for me, I like to describe it by referencing that cowbell sketch from SNL.
That's a good example.
A lot of good sketch comedy can follows game pattern rules. So if you want to get better at identifying game and watch sketch comedy, figure out the moves they're making and how they're manipulating them again and again, and that's what we're talking about. So in that specific example, if we're looking at it from a UCB perspective, they start that scene by by defining the rules of the world they're living in. So we meet the characters, we find out what they're doing. They're a rock band. They're the Blue Oyster Cult. They're in the studio recording their next album, and the stakes are being raised because this is the album that could skyrocket them to fame. So it's really important that they do it right. And then in UCB, once they've built the world of the scene, the breaking point is what they call the first unusual thing. So it's this weird moment in the scene that stands out in contrast to the world they've being built. Here, obviously, easily identifiable. The first unusual thing that happens in that world is when they start playing the song for the first time, Will Ferrell wails on the cowbell, disrupts the song, and they have to reset. Great. So that's the first unusual thing. Then if you're improvising that scene, everybody on stage, their antennas go up as soon as they see that first unusual thing, and they say, can we make this the entire scene? So then they restart, they play this song again, and again Will Ferrell hits the bell, and again everybody's annoyed, and it brings the thing to a grinding halt, and Christopher Walken keeps getting creepier.
Bruce Dickerson.
So that's the second instance. And that when you see the second time the game comes around, as a performer, that is kind of like a verbal confirmation that this is what we want to do. And then we see it a third time, and that is now everybody on stage is fully on board. We've seen it 3 times. We're going to keep seeing it, and we're going to keep making it more ridiculous every time you see it. So as an audience member, you know exactly what's going to happen. They're gonna reset. He's going to hit the bell or the cowbell too much, and everybody's going to get a little madder, and Christopher Walken's going to get a little weirder, and then you run that game until a breaking point where you cannot heighten it anymore, where now he's freaking out, the band is losing their minds, Christopher Walken's talking about taking a shit in gold-plated diapers, and they've found the zaniest ending to the game they're running. You put a little button on it. That is a quintessential game scene in improv.
So one of the other things that I think that's interesting about that sketch that I think is worth talking about is that era of SNL was where they kind of first discovered that they enjoyed having their actors break on camera. When we say break, that means that they break character, or corpse is another term for it. It's when you laugh unintentionally during the sketch. And that is a supposedly unintentional way to kind of heighten the sketch and to give the audience kind of this illusion of realness to the whole thing. Like, oh, this is live because they can't hold it together. Horatio Sands and who was it? What's his name in that?
Jimmy Fallon built a career on breaking.
Oh, Jimmy Fallon.
He kind of created. He wrote the book on breaking in sketch.
He wrote the book on breaking.
Personally, I feel like breaking. It's like it's fine. It's like, but it's like professional wrestling. At some point, they're just doing it on purpose. They're letting it happen because they know that the audience is enjoying it, and it just to me just ruins the illusion of the sketch. You kind of have to pretend that it's you have to pretend that it's something that's happening that you can enjoy the story wise. You don't want to think about the actors, but yeah. Anyways, Dustin Wayne Looperstar joining us on Periscope, our one Periscope viewer. That's pretty nice. Thanks, Dustin, for joining us on Periscope. But anyways, we got some stuff set up. So earlier, Mahmoud was saying, hey, yes, Victor, of course, bringing up Harvey Korman and Tim Conway from, oh, hey, is that beverage or sippy cup?
That's Sippy.
Oh, Sippy. Hi, Sippy.
Sippy.
Yeah, Tim Conway and Harvey Korman from the Carol Burnett Show, also something I watched a lot as a kid. And yes, they did break a lot as well, but I was talking specifically about the era of SNL where that happened a lot.
There was an entire 30 Rock episode where somebody accidentally tells Tracy Jordan what breaking is, and then that's his whole goal for that show, is that he's going to break in every scene.
That's hilarious. I feel like 30 Rock, I love 30 Rock, and I feel like part of that is kind of an apology to the audience for those years of SNL that Tina Fey was being, was head writer, who I think Tina Fey is brilliant, but I really think that SNL just hamstrung her,
I have a theory about SNL, and that everybody's golden era is when they were in middle school, because that's when I learned about the show, was like Will Ferrell and Jimmy Fallon and all that, and I look back on that era so fondly, and then I'm like, and then in kids these days are or just recently a lot of heavy fucking hitters left that show, and everybody talks shit about it, but people in middle school and high school love it, and in 10 years they'll hate whatever's happening currently on that show.
Well, I mean, the thing is though, is that I really did love the Will Ferrell years, but I also love the Phil Hartman years. To me it's more about the performers. Yeah. But I do think that throughout the years they've gotten to take less chances, and I think that it's become a lot more safe.
Yeah.
I think that like the Will Forte years, he did some amazing stuff during those years.
Everybody talks about how that show is constantly going downhill, but not that long ago, there was Will Forte, Bill Hader, Kristen Wiig, Jason Sudeikis, Taron Killam, Cecily Strong. It's like such a talented cast, and they did some good stuff and also not good stuff.
Yeah,
and
a lot of good stuff too.
Thinking about what that show is, it's the only network sketch show. They can't really be as weird as some other stuff. They are hamstrung by being on network TV.
True.
And I think it is what it is. Has it gone downhill? I don't know. Is it much funnier for somebody who's just kind of discovering comedy than us with our hardened outer shell?
Comic hearts.
Yes. Also, yes.
Yeah. But the thing is, the formula with SNL. I not too long ago went back and watched the original first season of SNL. When's the last time that you watched any of the first season episodes?
I did when I first got Hulu. I went back and watched a bunch of those because Hulu was originally like the NBC streaming service, and I'll tell you some of that season 1 stuff is hard to get through.
Real bad.
Hard to get through.
There was a sketch with Buck Henry, who died this last year, I think. Buck Henry was brilliant, but he was playing this character of this like creepy molester uncle character, and he was encouraging the female actresses in the scene to do like really creepy stuff, like slide down a banister and stuff like that, and he was just like he like getting all creepy, and it was just terrible.
Hey guys, my brother and I, we had a Betamax camera when we were about 6 and 9 years old, and we were watching Saturday Night Live with Chevy Chase and all these guys on there, and they were doing skits of people doing coke and everything, and then my brother and I would replicate those and and we had coffee creamer out, and we'd be like snorting coffee creamer, and my mom walks in and goes, "What the hell are you guys doing?" And we had no idea even what cocaine was. We just saw that's what they were doing, right?
Yeah.
And so we were doing Mr. Bill shows. We were doing, like I said, we would try to recreate what they did, but they were getting some sketchy stuff, and here we are 6 years old doing it.
Yeah.
You know? So
Amazing.
Well, and that's why Coke became so popular in America.
exactly, it's Saturday Night Live. So,
There's always new people doing new things, like Kate McKinnon gets away with so much. You got to watch every week to keep caught up with the growth, ebbs, and flows with SNL. I don't watch SNL anymore. I used to constantly, because I was like, oh, this is where comedy is kind of at the forefront. Like, they're always doing new stuff every week. There's a ton of talented writers and actors and performers. But to me, it's pretty much trash nowadays. I mean, you got like a lot of talented people that are just trapped in a formula, and they don't really get to do stuff. And on top of it, the thing that bothers me the most about it is the performances. Because the performances from some great performers, you have to be able to be good at reading cue cards. And you can see their eyes just like reading stuff. And they're trying to do a comedic character, but they're reading. It's terrible.
Yeah. I don't watch much late night either. I used to watch a lot of Conan, like Dave Letterman, a lot of Conan, Saturday Night Live things. Now it's like anything that I need to experience from that realm of entertainment will go viral, and I'll see it.
Yeah,
I don't need to tune into it.
I agree. Have you found yourself, since you've been involved with comedy, have you found yourself being less likely to watch comedy on television?
No.
In general. I mean, I think that I used to watch a lot more comedy before I started improv, but then again, it's been like 25
I agree with you.
years.
I do. I mean, I agree 100%. I mean, I watch a lot more sci-fi and drama than I do comedy, only because, now you start to become overly discerning on the comedy. You're analyzing it too much.
There are certain things I don't like. I used to love the Improv for Humans podcast. I don't listen to that as much. I don't listen to that at all anymore, just because I am already so consumed by improv.
Exactly. You want a break when you go home, Yeah.
I do watch, sketch and comedy movies and shows. Yeah, for sure. I love it. I love to laugh.
I hate laughing. I hate when I start laughing. It just feels like my body's throwing up or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I get so sick to my tummy, but I love feeling sick, so I love to laugh.
During this time, guys, we've had a lot of streaming to do, right, and a lot of binging, and we just got done binging Community, and that show is completely underrated. I mean,
it's a great show.
Some fantastic comedy, and I think I watched it when it was out, and I didn't appreciate it like I do today. So
I love the first 3 seasons of that show.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Great. It's creative. It's weird. And I love how they manipulate genres and stuff. Then they fired Dan Harmon, and the 4th season is kind of weird. And then they lose. They kind of he's back for seasons 5 and 6. But I feel like you can kind of hear a bitterness in his writing after he was fired from the first place, that the last 2 seasons have a little bit kind of a downer feel to them.
Watching Harmontown, I mean, he does seem like he's just insufferable to work with, but it's also partially like the environment that he's forced to occupy and write within. Like, I've watched. There was a BAFTA, British Arts and Film and Theater Awards or whatever. There was like a BAFTA talk about the difference between an American comedy writing room and a British comedy writing room. And the American comedy writing room is all about produced content, like go, make it happen. And they pressure people, they fire people, they change the people that are involved, whatever. It's just like it's like a corporate board for comedy. But in Britain, they're like, hey, here's a room for you guys. We got a fridge fully stocked with food and snacks and beer, whatever you guys need. If you have anything that you want, write it down on this thing and just send it in. We'll get you taken care of. You guys got 6 months to make these 6 episodes, so have at it, have fun, write whatever you guys want to write, and then it'll come through to the end, and we'll make sure that it turns into a television comedy. So I mean, it's like way different.
I think that the explosion of streaming services and non-traditional networks and studios creating content, I think that has allowed that type of thinking to flourish in America now. So like the idea of success in writing comedy 10 years ago even was to get a network sitcom like The Office and do 25 episodes a season and do as many seasons as possible.
Right.
And that is a lot. And now with like Netflix and Hulu, we get these weird shows that, they're going to do 3 or 4 seasons of, like Baskets.
Yeah.
FX is outstanding. They do like 10 a year. That's all that they need.
Yeah.
Small limited runs like I Think You Should Leave on Netflix. Or like What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff like that where it's like, we want you to write what you want. Or like Vice Principals.
Yeah.
So HBO's got this thing going with Danny McBride. They know that his shit is really funny and he's going to come up with really good ideas. And he went to them and said, I have an idea for a show. It's called Vice Principals. We have 2 seasons and that's it. Doesn't matter if it's a huge success. Doesn't matter. We have a story for 2 seasons. That's what we want to do. And they did it. They told their story. It had an awesome, satisfying ending. And then Danny McBride moved on to the next thing. And I think that is way more common now in America than it ever has been.
It's a much better way to go. I mean, when you actually trust the creators to do stuff, I mean, that's going to like do a lot for you. Let me see here. So Gay Agenda asked, what if you had to watch Jimmy Fallon and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson do Weekend Update for 985,000 hours straight in stereo? I would be really disappointed it wasn't in 5.1 Dolby Atmos surround. I think that would be my big problem.
I mean, I am starved for content in the COVID era, so yeah, bring it on, baby.
985,000 hours, Andy. You might be underestimating the amount of time that you can handle. 2 seasons is enough for Amazing Showboat. Fleabag is an incredible example. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting to watch Fleabag. I hear it's fantastic.
I need to watch that. People are into it.
Andy, let's make a pact with each other right now to watch Fleabag.
Okay.
Not by next week, just to watch it.
Okay. Just sometime, in the future, we will have had watched Fleabag sometime.
Andy and I promise. Bob, you're off the hook. You don't have to promise.
Thank you. Appreciate that, guys.
Well, I'm not going to make you watch TV. Andy, that hoodie looks really comfortable. Or is that a slanket?
No, it's a hoodie.
Oh, okay.
It's fuzzy.
It's really cozy.
It's my most wook piece of clothing.
It's totally wooked up, yes.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, a wook is the dirty hippie you see at every festival that has nothing on him but is constantly asking people for Lucy cigarettes.
I've never been the wook, but I've hung out with lots of wooks in my time.
The goal,
all right. Well, should we get into doing some short scenes with some stuff?
I think we're at an hour almost, right? I think we've had a really interesting, engaging conversation. Do you want to try to squeeze in an improv exercise, or do we want to just try it next week?
Let's just do one. One short one here. So what we've been doing is, and I'm going to switch over to our other view here, but what we've been doing is we've been putting our mouths on other characters. So we've been getting like pictures with 3 people facing the audience, and the audience being you, and putting our mouths on those characters. So we got a few different pictures that we've been working with pre-show just to kind of set up a little bit, and I'm just kind of setting things up now that we're getting ready to try this out. But I do think that this is a way that kind of provides context and gives us the ability to improvise with something that's completely brand new, something that's like, giving the audience some of the context that we can do during a live show on stage, but isn't necessarily something that it works on video, because on video it's like, we don't have fancy sets behind us. We don't even have green screens. We can't transport ourselves to somewhere else. But what we can do is something like this.
Hey.
There we go. So we can put our faces, we can put our mouths on other faces and become other people. And it's also evidence to the audience that we have changed people as well.
What?
I've written a sonnet I would like you guys to take a look at.
Let's get a suggestion from the audience and try a scene with these three fine gentlemen. So we need a suggestion from you guys, the audience.
Any word at all.
What's that, Andy?
Any word at all.
Any word
Like
at all. Just one word. One word. They have a little bit of a delay watching, so it takes them a minute to get to the suggestion phase. Or maybe everyone's tuned out. I don't know.
Could be.
All right, the word is pineapple. Let's just do a short. We got 2 minutes on the clock. Oh wait, here we go. What? Solier complaining about Amadeus's opera. Solier. Fort. Let's go with fort from the Gay Agenda. The suggestion is fort. I'm so glad that you fellows could make it to my fort.
Quite.
Yes, I have some designs here for different making. Please.
I'm sorry. Wait 1 second. Thomas, I invited you to my fort in the wilderness of America, and you brought new designs for a brand new fort because this fort is not good enough for you?
That's exactly right there, Charles. I just think that it's not fortified enough.
You ungrateful swine.
Who, me or him?
Oh, you
Me?
are great. I'm talking about Thomas.
Or good, Lady Tabitha.
Oh, quite.
I'm glad you are in agreement with myself.
Listen,
I
you
believe
guys
it's the
will
fort.
die in the wilderness with your toothpick fort that you've built.
Toothpick fort.
How
Toothpick fort.
dare you?
I have never been this insulted in my entire life. I have been across the ocean and spoken to kings and queens, and now you come here, Thomas, and insult me and Lady Tabitha as she reads her sheet music?
Listen, I'm sorry, but you built a fort out of pretzels and toothpicks. It's just not going to stand.
May I say, Lord Fletchington,
Yes.
that this is the finest fort I've ever been in.
Your squirrels are eating the walls as we speak.
Thank you, Lady Tabitha. Charles, we'll see how much you like this fort from the inside of the garrison jail that is inside of it. Guards, to the jail for Charles.
To the jail!
I will not be able to land prison.
Wonderful.
There
Flawless.
we go. Sometimes the transition button doesn't work. I should make a hotkey for it.
Yeah.
But anyways, so we're talking about doing stuff like that with photos. Like, I think that there's a way to be, you could do an entire show with that. Some of the improv I've seen online is mainly like heads in boxes like this, and then, they just do improv with their heads in boxes. But like, this is simple to set up as far as like getting just the mouths on there.
It's fun.
So I don't know, something to think about for next week. we do need to choose our next week's guest from the audience. Bob, did you have a fun time today?
I had a great time, guys. Thanks.
That's great.
Appreciate it.
And your camera quality is really nice, Bob.
Thank
what kind
you.
of camera
It's a
are you
Microsoft
using?
Surface.
Oh, that's a Surface tablet?
Yes.
Nice. It looks really good. It's really good quality.
Thank you.
So yeah, we just need do the faces of the gay agenda next time. But yeah, we could do an entire show of all different faces, different voices, and all that stuff.
Does the gay agenda want to join us for next week's episode?
Oh, we could have both you guys on there.
There you go.
Yeah, we are using Streamlabs Neo V 2.1. I'm using the Streamlabs version of OBS, which OBS is a free program, cross-platform for Mac, Linux, and Windows. You can set it up on your computer, no problem. There's tons of videos out there. Streamlabs is a version of OBS that has like some other little fun things that you can throw into it. It even has like a little remote control thing you could put on your phone so you can control what scenes show up and stuff like that. If you're involved with the Planet Ant and you want some help getting some stuff set up with that program, please hit me up. You guys all know me. You can hit me up through the Planet Ant Training Center page or private message me, whatever you would like to do. I'm happy to put together some tutorials and help you get online and streaming.
I am not good at the tech stuff, but you can message me about anything else.
Anything at all. If you
Anything
want
at
a
all.
virtual hug or whatever. We're not using Zoom. I'm using Skype right now, and Skype works great for this purpose. It does have some really weird issues sometimes where it'll automatically resize windows. So I've kind of like been a little bit lazy. I haven't really been looking as hard as I should at an alternative for it. But like Discord is really good for video. Zoom, I don't really like that much. I don't really like the company and the way that they handled their privacy issues and all the problems that they had right out of the gate. Not a fan of Zoom. I don't really care for their company. I'm not really a big fan of Microsoft either, but Skype is what it is. And it's been around a while at least, and we know the issues with it. So that's why I choose Skype. We would love to, but we'll need our manager's approval, remember? Oh yeah, so your manager, Kyle, as well. So, I mean, we could put all three of you on, I guess, but
Yeah.
that's gonna be 5 of us on next week's show. Gay Agenda, we're gonna try to get you guys, at least one of you guys, on the show for next week. We'll make that decision right now. We'll make that call right now here on the stream. So next week, tune in for a special guest, Gay Agenda, one or all or some or what. We won't know until we figure it out, and we'll let you guys know and keep you guys posted. But that's it for today's stream of the Planet Ant Training Center. Tune in next week for Andy and I might watch Fleabag. Give it up to our guest, Bob Hahn, and keep watching and keep talking to us in the Planet Ant Training Center.
And keep your eyes on the stars.
Keep your eyes on the stars.
Keep beating the ground and keep reaching for the stars.
All right. Have a great week, everybody. We love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.